The Ruy Lopez opening is one of the most popular openings played by white and is also considered one of the best ways for white to gain an advantage in the early stages of the game. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5. The main line then goes like this. a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castle, bishop e7. It may look like that e4 pawn is hanging for free, but after black takes it, white plays rook e1. If the knight comes back, you can just take the pawn back with the knight. But remember, if black takes your knight with one of his own, don't hurry with taking the knight back with your rook, because the rook is very weak at that square, and you will eventually have to retreat it back and lose tempo. The knight is pinned to the king, so you can just play d4, and after black moves, just take the knight with the pawn and have a much better position. Let's come back to the main line. After rook e1, b5 comes in, bishop e3, d6, and c3. The plan for the middle game would be to strike in the center with your d-pawn, develop your pieces, and maybe later on try to create an attack on the queen's side. The other famous line is the exchange variation. As the name says, the line starts with trading the bishop for a knight and damaging black's pawn structure. The line then follows with white castling and black playing f6. If you would take the pawn on e5, black can play queen d4, and you have to retreat your knight back and lose the pawn with check, and black would have a small advantage. After f6, play d4. He takes d4, knight takes c5, and knight b3. Black might trade queens and simplify the position, but overall for the middle game, try to develop your other pieces. Maybe push your pawns on queen's side. Look for your opponent's weaknesses, or just respond to his attacks. The last line, and maybe the most complex and complicated, is the Berlin defense. After bishop b5, black responds with knight c6. The line then follows like this. Castle, knight takes e4, d4, knight d6, bishop takes on c6, d takes c6, d takes e5, knight f5, and trade of queens. There are a lot of variations of Berlin defense, and most of them are dead equal, and it is hard to find a winning position. However, in this specific line, at beginners to advanced levels, this is probably the variation to have some advantage against black. Your king is much safer and your pawn structure is better, but in professional level, this position mostly ends in draw. There are a lot of traps in Ruy Lopez opening, especially in the Berlin defense we covered earlier. After castling, black takes your pawn and you play rook e1. If black wants to protect his knight with d5, you play d3, and after knight retreating, you take on e5, threatening discover check and pinning his knight. Best move for black is bishop e6, but you still will be up a lot of material. If black plays knight d6, you take on e5. If black thinks you just hang a bishop, you take his knight on c6 with discover check and win the queen. Last trap is when black is really trying to take your bishop down, pushing queen side pawns, and then playing knight d4. That is a fatal mistake, because after exchanging knights, you sacrifice your bishop, and then play queen h5 check, queen e5 check, and collect black rook. The Ruy Lopez opening is a great opening, as it allows white to develop its pieces fast, disrupt black's pawn structure, and gain a positional advantage. It is also considered a great opening for beginners, as it gives white an attacking start, and it could be harder for new players to deal with double pawns and no right to castle. You will definitely win a few games learning all trap variations shown in this video, as the lines are quite common and the traps are easy to fall in. But remember, Ruy Lopez is a very complex opening with a number of possible opening lines, variations, and sidelines, which can't be covered in this video. But for those that are, you can practice them and really save them in your mind by attempting a quiz I made. Link is in description. Good luck!